It's the night of June 18th, 2022, in Reston, Virginia. Elmer Alas Candray, aka Buky, and another man picked up 42-year-old Francisco Avalar Rivera, told him they were going for a ride, and drove him to Seneca Regional Park in Great Falls. When they reached a secluded spot in the woods, they beat him with a baseball bat, then stabbed him repeatedly with knives. But they didn't stop when he died. They dismembered his body. According to a prosecutor's testimony, over 2 years after that fateful June night, quote, "They cut off his head, they cut off his hands, they cut off his arms, they cut off his legs." It would be over a year before Rivera was discovered in those woods. He was a victim of another East Coast MS-13 slang, following in line with their modus operandi. Take the victim to the woods, beat him, and chop him up. But contrary to what it sounds like, Francisco Avalar Rivera wasn't a rival gang member. He was MS-13. He was one of their own. Between August 2018 and June 2022, Buky Candray took the lives of many people in Massachusetts and Virginia to climb the ranks of MS-13, an openly satanic criminal organization. And Francisco's death wasn't even the most violent of them. This is the MS-13 serial killer. Elmer de Jesus Alas Candray was a 27-year-old Salvadoran who entered the United States illegally. He used the alias German Alexander Ramirez Lopez, but went by Buky or Desquiciado, Spanish for unhinged. He belonged to MS-13's Uniones Locos Salvatrucha clique, or ULS, operating in Reston, Virginia. Although it's unclear when he entered the country, by 2018 he was a high-ranking gang member. MS-13 operates on a strict hierarchy where rank is earned through violence. The more people you kill, the higher you rise. Between 2018 and 2022, Alas Candray would commit 6 murders to prove his loyalty and climb the ranks, going from a mid-level gang member to one of the most feared enforcers in the Virginia MS-13 network. MS-13, known officially as Mara Salvatrucha, is a transnational criminal organization with thousands of members across the United States and Central America. The gang originated in Los Angeles in the 1980s when Salvadoran immigrants banded together for protection. The group started as a satanic-influenced group of teens who met to listen to death metal and walk the streets, but over time, it's become one of the most violent gangs in the world. MS-13 is known for extreme brutality, using machetes, guns, and baseball bats to torture and murder their victims. They make money through drug trafficking, extortion, human smuggling, and murder for hire. The gang's leadership operates from inside prisons in El Salvador, where they send orders to street-level members. When leadership decides someone needs to die, they greenlight the murder. Members who complete sanctioned murders get promoted. In Reston, Virginia, MS-13 operated openly during the late 2010s and early 2020s. They claimed neighborhoods and wooded areas as territory and killed anyone they perceived as a threat. Elmer Alas Candray was one of the most active killers in the network during this period.
Start tonight with a news alert out of Northern Virginia. An MS-13 gang member has been found guilty of killing multiple people in Northern Virginia.
Elmer Alas Candray learning his fate just moments ago. Let's go to Homa Bash live for us at the federal courthouse in Alexandria with the details on this case. Homa?
Hey guys, good evening. Yeah, this trial lasted 2 weeks and jurors returned their verdict in less than 4 hours. Elmer Alas Candray finding out that he is guilty on all 14 counts, including the murders of 5 people in Fairfax County. Closing arguments began this morning and the jurors got that case around 1 o'clock. Returning with the guilty verdicts right around 4. Candray is originally from El Salvador. Many parts of this trial were conducted in Spanish and translated. Federal court documents describe the gruesome murders which took place from 2018 to 2022. Stabbings, shootings, limbs cut off and discarded or buried. The victims range in age from a 19-year-old waitress in Fairfax shot 16 times in the face after making a social media video disparaging MS-13 to a 42-year-old fellow gang member. Fox 5 covered one of the deaths extensively, 24-year-old Jose Guillen Mejia, a father whose body was found in 2019 in the woods off a walking trail in Reston. At the time, Fairfax County police did not believe his death was gang-related, but according to prosecutors, Mejia was simply the first person that Candray and his associates saw in the woods in an area they considered their turf. So they shot him multiple times and killed him.
MS-13 leadership in El Salvador greenlit the killing of 18-year-old Kevin Abarca Choto. Leadership believed Choto had betrayed MS-13. According to witness testimony, Choto also owed the gang money. On the evening of August 25, 2018, Elmer Alas Candray and other ULS members met Choto at an MS-13 member's residence in New Bedford. They sat down and had dinner together. They ate, talked, acted friendly. Choto had no idea what was coming. After dinner, the gang members turned on him. They beat him, then strangled him to death with a belt. They dragged his body into the bathtub and dismembered it with knives, cutting him into pieces. They placed the body parts into trash bags and drove to a wooded area near New Bedford where they buried the remains. A co-conspirator nicknamed Dexter stayed behind to clean the bathroom with bleach, scrubbing away the blood and any evidence. The remains have never been found. His body is still buried somewhere in the woods near New Bedford. For this murder, Elmer Alas Candray and the other killers were promoted within the local clique. The murder had been sanctioned by leadership in El Salvador, and they had carried it out successfully. In mid-2019, the ULS clique claimed a small wooded area behind the Hunter Woods Plaza shopping center as territory. The problem was that people kept using the woods for drinking, smoking weed, and selling drugs. This activity was bringing police attention MS-13 didn't want. The gang decided they needed to send a message by killing someone in those woods. On June 23, 2019, Alas Candray and other ULS members armed themselves with a 9mm handgun, a .45 caliber handgun, and 2 machetes. They headed to the woods looking for a victim. They spotted 24-year-old Jose Guillen Mejia walking on a trail. Mejia was a father who lived in Reston. He wasn't a gang member, wasn't involved in drugs. He was just the first person they saw, and that was enough. They shot him multiple times with the handguns, then attacked him with the machetes, slashing and hacking at his body. They left the innocent civilian dead on the trail, surrounded by bullet casings and blood. When Fairfax County Police discovered the body, they didn't initially believe it was gang-related. It took years of investigation before detectives connected this murder to MS-13 and to Alas Candray specifically. Candray's next victim was a 19-year-old waitress. Iris Ponce Garcia, the victim, posted a video on social media where she made fun of MS-13, mocked the gang, and disparaged them publicly. MS-13 doesn't tolerate public disrespect. The gang decided Iris Ponce Garcia had to die. Alas Candray and 3 other MS-13 members devised a plan to lure her to a location where they could kill her. One co-conspirator created a fake Snapchat account and pretended to be a rival gang member. He started messaging Iris, building trust, and convinced her to meet up. On September 17, 2020, just before 7 in the morning, 2 MS-13 members picked up Iris and drove her to Colts Neck Road in Reston, where Elmer Alas Candray and another gang member were waiting. The 4 surrounded her and took turns shooting. They shot Iris Ponce Garcia 16 times, mostly in the face, until she was unrecognizable. A passerby later found her body near the intersection of Colts Neck Road and Glade Drive. The extreme violence was obviously meant to send a message. MS-13 wanted everyone in Reston who knew them to know what happens when you disrespect them.
Where the body was found, according to police, you see the silver Mustang parked on the side of the road, and then there's a light blue vehicle right in front of that. Police say the woman's body was found just in front of that car at about 7 o'clock this morning. Chopper 4 shows us the large Fairfax County homicide investigation on Colts Neck Road near Glade Drive Thursday morning.
On March 11th of the next year, Candray took the life of 40-year-old Santos Antonio Trejo Lemus. MS-13 believed that Lemus was a member of a rival gang, so Alas Candray and other ULS members decided to kill him. On March 11th, 2021, they tracked Lemus to an apartment complex on Winterthur Court in Reston. They waited for him to come home. When Lemus entered the entryway of his building, Alas Candray ambushed him and shot him multiple times. Unlike the other hits, this one was a quick, efficient gangland assassination. Alas Candray and other ULS members often patrolled the area behind the Lerner Springs at Reston apartment homes. They considered this territory theirs and regularly walked the footpaths to make sure no rivals were operating in the area. On May 30th, 2022, they encountered 27-year-old Rene Pineda Sanchez walking on a footpath. He was a local resident, but there's no evidence he was involved in gangs or had any connection to MS-13's rivals. He was just walking that day. But a man they didn't recognize was walking through MS-13 territory, and that was enough. The gang attacked him and kicked him repeatedly, beating him to the ground. They picked up a large rock and dropped it on his head. They lifted it and dropped it again and again till he was dead. They left his body on the footpath and walked away.
A member who was walking her dog on the pathway behind the apartment complex found what we believe was a man laying on the ground.
Investigators were only able to share a few details about the man.
He was suffering from trauma to the upper body and was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Police were not able to say how long the man's body may have been on the trail, but did say it appears he may not have been there long.
It's believed that he lives nearby in the area. Because they're working to piece together a timeline to make sure, but I just believe that it hasn't been too long from when it was discovered.
This trail winds through this complex into another set of apartment homes. Police have not identified who else is involved, but don't believe there's a threat to anyone who lives in this area.
Candray's sixth and final murder was the most brutal. The victim was 42-year-old Francisco Avila Rivera, known as Papalito. He was a fellow MS-13 member, not a rival, but one of their own. The problem was that Papalito had been lying about his rank within MS-13. He'd been inflating his status, claiming to be higher up in the organization than he actually was. He'd also disrespected MS-13 leadership and went against their rules. In the gang's eyes, these offenses were unforgivable. MS-13 leadership decided Papalito had to die, and Elmer Alas Candray was chosen to carry out the execution. On June 18, 2022, Alas Candray and a co-conspirator picked up Avila Rivera from Reston, told him they were going for a ride, and drove him to Seneca Regional Park in Great Falls, Virginia, a large park with wooded trails far from populated areas. When they reached a secluded spot, they attacked. They beat Avila Rivera with a baseball bat, striking him over and over. Then they stabbed him repeatedly with knives. They didn't stop when he died. They dismembered his body and buried his remains in the woods, where they stayed hidden for more than a year before authorities discovered them. Candray had killed 6 people by now, rivals, innocents, and fellow gangsters alike. He'd risen up fast within the ULS clique and was now being contracted by leadership directly to take lives for them. However, as expected, he wouldn't last much longer. Federal authorities had been investigating MS-13 activities in Fairfax County for years. The FBI, Fairfax County Police, and the U.S. Attorney's Office were building cases against gang members in the Reston area. Detectives began connecting the murders, same location patterns, same brutal tactics, and witnesses were starting to come forward. On August 17, 2022, Alas Candray sent a coded message through a relative to other ULS members. He told them to get rid of ammunition, warned them that police had photographs, and advised them to move. When authorities raided Alas Candray's home in Manassas, they found a handgun linked to multiple shootings, 2 revolvers, 2 machetes, a baseball bat, knives, and ammunition. Most damning, however, was a kill list on his phone that included the names of several already murdered victims. Alas Candray and 12 other MS-13 members were indicted on federal racketeering and murder charges. Of the 13 indicted, 8 pleaded guilty. Not shockingly, 5 of them agreed to testify against Alas Candray in exchange for reduced sentences. In October 2024, Elmer Alas Candray went to trial in U.S. District Court in Alexandria, Virginia. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The 5 co-conspirators who had pleaded guilty took the stand and testified about what he'd done. They described in graphic detail how he participated in each murder, what role he played, and how the victims were killed. They told the jury about the dinner with Kevin Choto before they strangled him and dismembered his body in the bathtub. They described hunting for a victim in the woods behind Hunter Woods Plaza before shooting and slashing Jose Mejia. They explained the fake Snapchat account used to lure Iris Ponce Garcia to her death. Prosecutors showed the jury crime scene photos, the kill list from Alas Candray's phone with victim names clearly visible, and the weapons recovered from his home. They walked the jury through the timeline of 6 murders over 4 years, demonstrating that Elmer Alas Candray was the common thread connecting all of them. Assistant U.S. Attorney Megan Braun told the jury, quote, "He gangs up on his victims. He shoots them in the back and he defiles their corpses." She spoke about Iris Ponce Garcia. They shot Iris 16 times, primarily in the face, leaving her unrecognizable, and about Francisco Avila Rivera's dismemberment. They cut off his head, they cut off his hands, they cut off his arms, they cut off his legs. Meanwhile, defense attorney Andrew Stewart argued that the cooperating witnesses were trying to shift blame to save themselves. On October 21, 2024, after just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all 14 counts. On January 30, 2025, Elmer Alas Candray appeared before Judge Michaelis Nachmanoff for sentencing. Buky was sentenced to 6 concurrent life sentences in federal prison, plus additional terms. He will never be eligible for parole. An immigration detainer was filed. If ever released, he would be immediately deported. However, more than likely, he will die on U.S. soil in a prison medical center. Between August 2018 and June 2022, Elmer Alas Candray murdered 6 people to climb the ranks of MS-13. He was 21 years old when he committed his first murder in New Bedford, Massachusetts. He was 25 when he committed his last murder in Seneca Regional Park. The victims ranged in age from 18 all the way to 42. Kevin Choto was 18 years old, strangled with a belt and dismembered in a bathtub. Iris Ponce Garcia was 19 years old, shot 16 times in the face. Jose Guillen Mejia was 24 years old, a father shot and slashed with machetes. Rene Pineda Sanchez was 27 years old, beaten to death with a rock. Santos Antonio Trejo Lemus was 40 years old, shot in the entryway of his apartment building. Francisco Avalar Rivera was 42 years old, beaten, stabbed, and dismembered in the woods. Elmer Buky Alas Candray is 27 years old and will spend the rest of his life in a federal prison cell. His life ultimately is over. 6 families lost loved ones because he wanted to rise through the ranks of a gang that, at the end of the day, could kill him at any second like they did to Avalar Rivera. And now, instead of spending his life on the streets, making money and putting in work, Buky will spend it with a roommate in a small federal cell, doing menial prison work, eating commissary, and being told what to do by guards for the rest of his life.